Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and I'm back for some fresh Diablo 4 news. Today we have some drama and fun around Season 3, somewhat centered around our new patch that introduced uber unique crafting. A very exciting concept, but the way it works, as we should have expected, is a lot more comical. And there's potential more gauntlet delays again, and some Season 4 teasers to talk about too. So let's just get into it, starting with our new patch and uber unique crafting. If you don't know, the uber unique crafting is very simple. You can now go to an alchemist and use the newly named transmutation tab where we can craft any uber unique of your choice. Absolutely incredible in concept. You don't need true RNG to get your ideal uber. Now you can choose what you get, just with one massive downside. The new currency used to craft these resplendent sparks is only obtained from one source, and that's other uber uniques. And as we feared, our resplendent spark is gathered after dismantling one uber unique, which means you will need 5 uber uniques that you're willing to dismantle, by the way, before you can choose to craft a specific uber. The big question here then is, who is this for? The like 0.00001% of players that have 5 uber uniques they're willing to dismantle? Who has that many that they're willing to dismantle? Genuinely, I haven't had a single uber unique in Season 3, and I found one in Season 2 after killing many Duriels. So what, you're telling me I should expect to kill at least 1,500 Duriels before I can expect to use this crafting system once? I think I'd rather just not play the game. Every time with these devs, it's a good idea, just executed so out of touch. They don't want players to feel terrible when they get a duplicate uber, so they put a system in that helps them kind of mitigate that problem. It is possible and actually very likely to happen if you get multiple ubers, since there's not many, to get one you already have. Now with the gauntlet coming at some point, after maybe its 6th delay if we're lucky, you will need ideal gear to complete. It's not going to be fun or even valid competition if the other players you're racing against have significantly stronger items than you. And it's not like they earned it through gameplay per se, they just killed Duriel, I don't know, 50 times and ended up getting their ideal uber. So there's a wall of feedback about this addition, a system that's clearly meant to solve the pain point of this high-end gameplay. And if you're going to add something insane like the abattoir or a leaderboard system with the gauntlet in Season 3, but then wipe it all a month or so later, what does it matter if you actually let us have the strongest items in the game? It's all ultimately worthless and deleted essentially, because in Season 4 we start with none of it. I'm completely unable to take the gauntlet seriously, and it's not even out. I don't want to log onto a game and complete essentially a chore hundreds of times, maybe even 1,000 times, so that I can fairly compete in the gauntlet, which could launch as a mess like the abattoir did. If you introduced a crafting system that gave me concrete progression to the items I need, I'd actually care a lot more. And that's the main and best feedback I keep seeing in reaction to this update. If you were to set hard numbers like, okay, you need 100 sparks to craft an uber unique, not 5. And if you must, you can keep your ridiculous 5 ubers to craft 1 if it's gotta stay, so you get 20 sparks to dismantle maybe. You give us another source of these sparks, something like dismantling regular uniques. Maybe you get 1 or 2 sparks if they're kind. If you get 1 per regular unique, that would mean you need 100 regular uniques to dismantle to then get 1 uber via that crafting system. At that point, suddenly I'm willing to farm Duriel 100 times, because I know if I put that time in for this mindless grind, at least there's a mercy system in place. Maybe I'll even get lucky during those 100 kills and get a different uber. In any case, 5 ubers dismantled for 1 specific uber craft is way too much to be relevant to the mass majority of your player base. I think most will see 1 if they're lucky. So there's been a lot of talk about this concept in general. What is the endgame? What is it you actually do in Diablo 4 once you're level 100? Well, of course, you finish your build and get as strong as possible. This means you'll be doing a variety of content at first, like hunting specific bosses for unique drops. You'll be getting your eye level 925 on most everything you have, the proper affixes. So you're doing dungeons, or in Season 3's case, vaults, and then the uber vault until you actually get the unique construct stones unlocked. Through that, you'll be leveling the glyphs you need to and build up some materials for Duriel to maybe attempt some uber farming. All of that flies by in a pretty short period if you're lucky with drops, ending at Duriel again. So today there was this popular post by the user The Bing on Diablo 4's Reddit. They outlined Diablo 4's progression versus time and then compared it to Diablo 3. They outlined how small of a section the leveling actually was for Diablo 3's endgame, and how in the endgame you've got this quite steep curve to enjoy before it really begins to level out and that progression slowly advances. While in Diablo 4, the leveling section is almost all of the progression of the game, and then you have that small section of endgame which sharply ends when you get what you need, completely stopping once you hit Duriel farming to hopefully get an Uber. What happens if you actually get insanely lucky and get the Uber you need? Well, your power will sharply increase, but then what? Nothing. You can kill Duriel slightly more effectively, I guess, as stated by others. This is worse than Season 2. With the removal of the abattoir, a flawed endgame challenge, but at least it's something, we have nothing to replace it. The dungeons have been replaced by vaults, and malphas is a temporary thing to farm like Duriel. The gauntlet is meant to be the abattoir replacement, but with it not being in the game, we have lost out on endgame content options. That comedy continues as we talk about the gauntlet news. Just yesterday, as I record this video, it was revealed that the gauntlet was now planned for February 27th instead of the original 13th that we know it was delayed from. If you were to look at the official Diablo 4 website yesterday, you could scroll through the section about Season 3 until you spot the part about the gauntlet, and here in big bold letters were the words "Complete the Gauntlet, coming February 27th, PT." Now, we don't know what the PT stood for, but it hardly matters, because as of today, that part has changed. Now it reads, "Complete the Gauntlet, coming soon." Yep, it looks like it's been delayed again after being delayed twice already. It wasn't here for Season 3 as promised, it wasn't here for February 13th, and it doesn't look like it'll be there on February 27th either. Diablo 4 is just this, it's unfinished, and they're scrambling to update it through the seasons. We do have some news about Season 4 though today. 2 tweets in relevance to that. First, one from Adam Fletcher, who replied to a tweet today about Season 4. Twitter user Andre requested that aspects go directly into the codex rather than anywhere else in the future. Adam Fletcher replied saying, "That sounds like a thing to include with a giant itemization overhaul." To me, that reads pretty condescending, but that aside, it does tell us that the heavily requested codex update will actually happen in Season 4. This is something I've discussed in videos myself. It's a very popular idea in the community. Aspects you find and then extract do not go into a tiny tab in your inventory, but instead the infinite storage that is the codex system. You could put higher roles to store in there to pull from whenever you want to imprint on an item. That way you could easily search an aspect's name in your codex and then see all the listings of the roles that you've extracted and stored into your codex. Maybe it'll even be organized by power like a top role at the top. It'd be a great help to the massive stash issues we have now, real quality of life edition, and at least in some form, it looks like Adam has confirmed that that is happening, so that's good news. If you aren't aware, a huge itemization overhaul is happening for Diablo 4 because we really need it. So many affixes are completely useless or so weak you wouldn't really consider them. There is a massive amount of filler about these affixes, which means finding the items you actually want to use is very hard. It's a big pain point for the game that we spend so long just looking at items and then going, well, this is useless. So Rod Ferguson spoke about this today too. Twitter user Sensei asked if there was a plan to clean up these gear affixes with all the bloat that exists right now. Rod replied stating that this user is going to love Season 4 with that in mind, suggesting that that's exactly what is happening. So while we knew Season 4 is going to have some sort of itemization overhaul planned, it's good to know that they're actually going to really clean up the affixes and get rid of the filler and bloat as we know it today. So it's good to have some details to look forward to. But yeah, Season 3's fiasco continues. Season 4 hopefully will be the saving grace for the game. But after such a roller coaster of Season 1 and 3 being intense letdowns, I do find it hard to justify supporting the DLC with what? Another $70. On the bright side, we do have The Last Epoch, another ARPG that's finally releasing its full 1.0 version this February 21st, and a lot of people are looking forward to it. We're excited for it too. We plan to cover it on the channel. It looks like an absolute breath of fresh air compared to what we see in Diablo 4. Key elements that should always have existed, like over 100 stash tabs, a loot filter, wow, proper class builds, a variety, and maybe they'll even work. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the awesome video going around by Frosty LaRue, titled hilariously, "Why Diablo 4 Players Hate The Last Epoch." A very sarcastic take on the issues of Diablo 4, while comparing these key issues to The Last Epoch that, you know, resolves them. Within that video, there was this ultra good example about skill trees, where Diablo 4 is offering you either, hey, more damage or more crit damage for Fireball, just boring as hell. Or Last Epoch offering you, say, an entire skill tree for every ability. So for Fireball, you could turn it into multiple Fireballs, or a Plasma Ball, or change the Fireball to AoE on contact, make it auto-hone, do all of these things at once. So that video is doing the rounds right now, with the context of Season 3 being a bit of a mess. I would strongly recommend you check it out. It might convince you to give Last Epoch a go. But at this point, I better call the video here. Season 3 has been somewhat fumbled fumble after fumble, and it definitely sucks because new mechanics like the uber unique crafting is exactly what we need. It's a good thing to have. It's just executed so stingily that it becomes its own disappointment when it should be celebrated. So unfortunately, it's been a bit more of a negative roundup today, but I guess that's just where we're at. I hope it was still interesting and maybe even useful, but for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.